Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For those that would like ASL services, our ASL interpreters today are Aisha Simpson and Craig Ridgway. There will be a link in the chat that will provide you instructions on how to pin their videos, and a card services link will also be provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Yahira, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Civilian Complaint Review Board's January board meeting. My name is Fred Davey. I'm the chair of the board, and this is our first meeting of 2022. I'm going to ask my fellow board members if they will introduce themselves, and I will start with Mr. Carolina.
Good evening, Demetrius Carolina, Staten Island mayoral appointee.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons.
Good evening, Esmeralda Simmons, Brooklyn, New York, public advocate appointee.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt.
Council representative from Brooklyn.
Mr. Puma.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Puma. I'm the City Council representative on the board from Manhattan and a lifelong resident of the Lower East Side.
Great. Mr. Rivadeneira.
Good evening. Michael Rivadeneira. I am the City Council appointee for the Bronx, residing in the Bronx, and I just wanted to take a quick moment and thank everybody out there for all the prayers and support for the Bronx. It was a tragedy this past weekend, and the Bronx is coming together, trying to heal after that.
Indeed, prayers for sure, and all of our support and resources that we can render to help what is a horrific, horrific tragedy there in the Bronx. Thank you, Michael. Mr. Carcaterra.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sal Carcaterra, and I'm a police commissioner designee to the board. And to echo Michael's and the chair's sentiments, just prayers to the families of those victims.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Sure, thank you, Sal. Ms. Bond. Sure. Is it not working? Okay. Should I introduce you and we'll come back? So Erica Bond is a mayoral appointee and hails from Brooklyn. Is that right? All right, and you're still on mute, unfortunately. Yeah. Did I miss anyone? Is there anyone else? Any other board member? All right, we are expecting some other board members to sign on. A few are having technical difficulties. But if I'm correct, we have a quorum. And as much as we do, I'm going to ask for an approval, a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you. I'm going to remind board members to mute, and then when we're back or when you're speaking, then remember to unmute, and that'll help cut down on some of the background noise. So as many of you know, I have served as chair of the CCRB for the last 5 years. Today will be my last board meeting. In June, I reached out to Mayor Adams to congratulate him on becoming the Democratic nominee for mayor. And I informed him then that in this new year, I plan to step down as chair. I reiterated this in November and shared my decision with key advisors. My resignation has only to do with my believing I've served in this role long enough, and it's time for someone else to take the helm. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the city and the people of New York as part of the CCRB. I joined the board in 2016 and became chair in 2017. And over these 6 years, we have made great strides. I'm proud to have worked with City Hall, the City Council, the state legislature, advocates, and many others to strengthen civilian oversight of the NYPD. Just this year, the City Council approved multiple bills expanding the agency's powers. In April, they passed a bill expanding the CCRB's jurisdiction to include investigating bias-based policing and racial profiling. This new unit will finally provide recourse for victims of bias-based policing and is led by Darius Charney, one of the country's leading civil rights lawyers. Mr. Charney has long championed the fight against racial profiling in New York City, and I look forward to seeing him and his new unit continue fighting for justice for marginalized New Yorkers. This expansion of CCRB's jurisdiction happened shortly after the board voted to adopt new rules allowing the agency to investigate sexual misconduct and false official statements made by NYPD officers. While the police unions continue to fight these expanded investigative powers, just 2 months ago, the state Supreme Court of New York upheld the CCRB's right to investigate these types of misconduct. In November, the City Council passed another bill granting the CCRB the power to self-initiate complaints. Council member and now Speaker Adrian Adams spearheaded the bill, which finally shifts the burden of responsibility away from the victim and back onto the agency. It also ensures that all misconduct can be addressed, whether or not there is a viable complainant who can bear the responsibility of that role. These new powers of investigation are critical developments, and I want to thank our partners and my fellow board members for their work in making them happen. However, in order for the CCRB to fully investigate these additional forms of misconduct, the agency needs access to all records of police misconduct, including sealed records. Records are often sealed due to police misconduct, and it is crucial that the CCRB be exempt from sealing statutes in order to properly address all misconduct. In 2019, the city proved for some New Yorkers the CCRB is the only form of recourse after experiencing misconduct, even if this misconduct results in death. Daniel Pantaleo, the officer responsible for Eric Garner's death, was not held accountable for his actions until the CCRB took the case to trial. Thanks to the hard work of our investigators, the Administrative Prosecution Unit, the Administration Prosecution Unit, the NYPD finally terminated Mr. Pantaleo, making New York safer for everyone. Strengthening the agency throughout my tenure included also enhancing services to civilians and expanding personnel. For instance, we created the Civilian Assistance Unit, staffed by victims advocates, licensed social workers, trauma services professionals who provide free and confidential assistance to victims and complainants. We also started the Youth Advisory Council, made up of a group of young New Yorkers who are passionate about improving policing. Given young people are often victims of police misconduct, we wanted to ensure their voice is heard as the CCRB grows. The CCRB also worked to increase transparency for all New Yorkers. In 2020, in response to years of organizing by advocates and the protest against police misconduct after the murder of George Floyd, New York State repealed Civil Rights Law 50A. The CCRB immediately began working on a way to make the work we've done for so long available to the public. Immediately after, the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals lifted its order and the court's stay on the city and the CCRB, the agency released its officer history in a public database available on the CCRB website. The searchable database includes many details of the case, including board disposition, the NYPD disposition, and the NYPD penalty imposed. We started 2021 with hopeful signs of cooperation, such as signing the MOU on the disciplinary matrix with Commissioner Shea. When I joined the board only recommended that 10% of officers receive the most serious form of discipline, whereas now the board recommends that 48% of the officers against whom it has substantiated misconduct receive charges, the most serious form of discipline. While this is a great success, the NYPD decisions this year have not always lived up to the MOU. The CCRB substantiated misconduct against 80 officers while investigating Black Lives Matter protests. And of the 12 cases the NYPD closed, 9 received no discipline. In the last year, we saw non-APU concurrence rates fall from 73% to 68%, while APU cases only saw a concurrence rate of 27% in 2021. And these numbers don't account for several CCRB cases where the Department Advocate's Office, the DAO, is refusing to serve charges. The DAO stated it is stated in the 2012 memorandum that established the Administrative Prosecution Unit between CCRB and the NYPD that charges and specifications shall promptly be drafted by CCRB and thereafter be served upon the subject officer by the DAO, the Department Advocate's Office, on behalf of the CCRB. Recently, the DAO has refused to continue its duty to serve officers with CCRB charges in some cases. This recent development is extremely concerning and undermines the 2012 MOU under which we have operated over these last 9 years. The CCRB hopes to work with Mayor Adams and the new administration to rectify this situation. This recent development only reaffirms my belief that the only pathway to true and fair accountability of police misconduct is by granting the CCRB final disciplinary authority for CCRB cases. Until then, I am hopeful the new administration will support the CCRB and be partners in holding the NYPD accountable and increasing and strengthening civilian oversight of NYPD discipline. Mayor Adams has said that we must stand for a commitment to justice that is fair and safe, and I believe that includes a commitment to holding officers accountable for misconduct. I also want to thank Mayor Adams for including me on the Transition Committee for Public Safety and Justice, which ensured the CCRB's successes and goals were heard at the start of this new administration. I look forward to seeing the great strides the CCRB will continue to make, and I hope to continue to support this agency and the advancement of civilian oversight in any way deemed effective and appropriate going forward. My sincere gratitude to Mayor Bill de Blasio and his team, my fellow board members, CCRB staff, especially John and Matt, with whom I've worked closely over these years, the Youth Advisory Council, elected and public officials, key police officials, members of service, the advocates, and especially the complainants and victims for insisting on accountability in policing in this city. And with that, and my sincere thanks, I will pass it on to our CCRB Executive Director, Jonathan Darsh. John.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Your leadership and service over the years have been instrumental in the agency's many accomplishments. On a personal note, your wisdom, counsel, and guidance provided me with great comfort and wise choices, often in extremely difficult circumstances, and I want to publicly thank you for that. The staff here at the agency will continue your legacy and keep fighting for accountability for all New Yorkers. While Chair Davey outlined numerous successes over the years, there are still many challenges we face. In order to properly address misconduct, we look to the mayor, the city council, and the state legislature to support us in our upcoming goals. The agency needs to be exempt from sealing statutes. Currently, the CCRB must request sealed records, which NYPD has to deny. Many of these records are sealed due to police misconduct. Not having these records keeps us from getting key evidence and delays investigations. This is a particularly key problem for the new unit investigating racial profiling and bias-based policing. We hope this needed exemption will pass through the state legislature this year. While there have been huge improvements in fulfilling requests for NYPD records, particularly body-worn camera footage, it is important that the CCRB should have direct access to body-worn camera footage and other necessary records in order to more efficiently complete our investigations. As Chair Davey discussed in his remarks, resting final authority over discipline in the CCRB for cases where the board substantiates misconduct is another priority for the agency. On Monday night, Mayor Adams and Director Jiha of the Office of Management and Budget informed senior members of the administration of a budget cap in the current fiscal year, next fiscal year, and out years. The CCRB will be one of the agencies asked to cut spending by 3% in this fiscal year and the next fiscal year. I want to stress that the mayor spoke strongly of the need to avoid layoffs in meeting this challenge, and also stated that the services offered to residents of the city cannot be compromised. There's going to be a hold placed on promotions and new hires until the new plan is submitted to the Office of Management and Budget and worked out. The executive staff and budget director of the agency will be working closely with OMB over the next few weeks to produce the plan that will allow the agency to continue to provide New Yorkers with the civilian oversight of the NYPD that they demand. While meeting these goals will be a challenge, the agency is better able to meet this challenge because of steps taken during the last 2 years to restructure the agency. Some ground rules for this afternoon. Please, during the public session, use the raise the hand feature to make a comment, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes. And I want to thank the staff for all of their hard work, and thanks again to the members of the public participating in today's meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Starsh. We've had a couple of board members to join us. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and then I'm going to see if there are any questions for board members on your report, John. So I see Mr. Dwyer has joined us.
Frank Dwyer, Police Department Representative.
Ms. Rice has joined us.
Good evening, Arva Rice, mayoral representative. I'm calling in from Harlem.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Irish has joined us.
Maureen Irish, mayoral appointee, also from Harlem.
Did I miss anyone? All right. Are there any questions or comments on John's remarks? John, are there any immediate implications of the issues related to the PEG and I won't call it a freeze, but the considerations that have to be given around the hiring?
So it is going to be a challenging process to make sure that we make choices that allow the agency to continue to function in a way that serves the people we are charged by the charter to serve. And we've proven that we can do that. And Janine and David, the Deputy Executive Director for Administration and our Budget Director and Director of Operations, are very good at coming up with a plan that will allow us to do that. We're still in the very early stages. Again, this first came down Monday night. So when we meet again next month, I'll have a better sense of how we're going to do it. On the one hand, 3% for this fiscal year is a challenge because we're already halfway done with our fiscal year. But we should have, I actually think because haven't fully implemented the racial profiling and bias-based policing unit, we should be okay for this fiscal year. It is in the out years, especially next fiscal year, where the challenge will be. And so there's no dire immediate emergency.
Great. Thank you for that, John. And I'm sure that the board members and others can continue to work with the new administration and the city council, to try to ensure that, as we always have, that we get the resources due to us, and short of that, make the best case we can for getting as many resources as we possibly can. So thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Bond.
I just have one comment and one question. Can you hear me now, by the way? Is it working? Okay,
Yes.
Great. Sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. So first, I just want to say thank you to Chair Davey, who I think has done just an incredible job of leading this agency through what has been a very difficult and turbulent time for everybody involved with CCRB and in this city, including the protests of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. So those have all been challenges that you have led us through with grace, and all the while really working to expand the impact that the CCRB has and our ability to really provide oversight on behalf of New Yorkers. So I just really want to thank you for that. It has been an incredible pleasure working with you. So that was just one comment I wanted to make.
Thank you. Let me just say thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
So thank you, Chair Davey. And then the second comment is really a question related to the budget. So as I understand, in New York, we voted to peg CCRB's budget to that of the police department. And I believe that was put on hold because of some of the budgetary constraints related to the pandemic. But I would love to just get an update from the executive director on where that stands and how that intersects with the recent 3% budget cap.
So the CCRB's headcount was linked by the charter to be 0.65% of the NYPD's uniformed headcount. When the CCRB was given additional headcount to create the racial profiling and bias-based policing unit, we went significantly above the 0.65%. And so it's unclear to me exactly how exactly where we'll end up in relation to that goal. And as far as I have not been informed that the emergency that was declared when the link was suspended is going to be, if they're going to need to suspend it or not, or if we'll actually still be within the 0.65%. I just don't know yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Mr. Rivadeneira.
So I do also want to echo what Ms. Bond shared. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve on this board with you, Chair Davey. I've learned a lot under your leadership. I have a question, and it's also raising, actually, it's not a question, but it's raising sort of the same advocacy that another board member who has left us, the Nathan Joseph would always talk about outreach and the fact that we've been growing and have taken on new mandates per the charter. Want to make sure that we, in restructuring and in considering where our pegs are going to come, like, all our units are important, and as we grow our racial profiling unit, I think really important is outreach. We cannot, neglect outreach and reaching out to the community and having them better educated on all the services that we have. And I just wanted to make that point as one of the units that really still needs to be grown. And hopefully we're able to sort of go in that direction despite these particular pegs.
Thank you, Mr. Rivadeneira. John, do you want to respond at all?
I think Mr. Rivadeneira is absolutely correct. Outreach is one of the more vital units that we have. People don't know we're here. They can't utilize our services. And so we will keep in mind the need to balance all of the units. They're all important, even some of the units that sometimes don't get a lot of the face time and attention because they are support units. But especially during the pandemic, those support units, none of the other work could have gotten done without those units. So I think making sure that we structure the agency in a way that all of its component parts have enough strength that the agency as a whole is strong is important. And so that's what we're going to be doing over these next 2 weeks while we prepare the plan, is make sure that we don't weaken one link so much that it brings down the other parts of the chain.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Right. I see that Mr. Freeman has joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself? And you are on mute, Mr. Freeman. There you go.
Okay, hear me now?
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I'm Willie Freeman. I'm with the police commissioner.
Great, thank you. We'll now move to the next item on our agenda, and that is to hear a report from our Director of Outreach, Jahai Rose. Jahai.
Good evening. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you very much, Chair Davey. One, for all that you do, for all that you have done. And I want to say this before the end of my presentation, it's definitely been an honor.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Hey, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
As I mentioned, thank you all very much for joining. The CCRB is the city's the country, really the largest independent oversight entity over the largest police force in the country. CCRB investigates, mediates, and administratively prosecutes complaints of misconduct made against members of the New York City Police Department. You've met many members of our board today. Our agency is governed by a 15-member board, of which 5 seats are appointed by the New York City Mayor, 5 appointed by the New York City Council, 3 designated by the Police Commissioner, and 1 appointed by the New York City Public Advocate. The chair is jointly appointed by the Mayor and the City Council. The CCRB has the ability to investigate 4 categories of complaints or allegations. A helpful acronym is FATO. It's easy reminder for what that category, what those categories are. First of FATO is force. The second is abuse of authority. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on abuse of authority. As previously mentioned by Chair Davey, abuse of authority, the CCRB includes in abuse of authority sexual misconduct, which the agency has the ability to investigate if those allegations are made against New York City police officers. The CCRB's outreach unit, in addition to the senior advisor and Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, met with Bayana, the Director for the Civilian Assistance Unit, to develop a plan for this year to be able to reach out to family justice centers, in addition to New York City public hospitals that have trauma units and domestic violence units, to be able to ensure that the word is spread about the services that the CCRB provides, and definitely those who feel more comfortable filing complaints in the event they could utilize the services of the Civilian Assistance Unit, which treats the civilian that files a complaint like a whole person, allowing them to have additional resources in addition to the complaint that's filed with our agency, additional things that may come in their way from participating in our complaint process or the investigation process could be addressed by referrals that are made by the Civilian Assistance Unit. So we have meetings that are being set up and scheduled with those organizations to ensure that we maximize visibility for the services of a Civilian Assistance Unit and notify as many people as possible that the CCRB can in fact investigate complaints of sexual misconduct made against New York City police officers. The D in FADO stands for discourtesy, and the O stands for offensive language. I wanted to provide you with some additional information regarding the Right to Know Act. The Right to Know Act is a law that went into effect in October of 2018. It impacts how police officers interact with members of the public during searches, sobriety checkpoints, and other encounters. Under certain circumstances, officers are required to identify themselves by name and other information such as rank, command, shield number. In addition to that, officers, with some exceptions, should explain the purpose of the interaction. Next, police officers should inform a civilian of their right to say no when requesting a consent search of their person, property, vehicle, or home. And lastly, officers should offer a business card in certain circumstances that has the information about how to identify the officer, in addition to how to file a comment and or complaint about interactions with a civilian and a police officer. Civilians can request a business card in all encounters. This is what the business card looks like. There are a few ways to file a complaint about police misconduct to the CCRB. One of the easiest ways is by filing online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. You could also call our hotline at 1-800-341-CCRB or 1-800-341-2272. Also, if you see footage of misconduct on social media or in the news, you can file a complaint. Even if you weren't there in person, feel free to tag the CCRB in the post so we can be notified of that complaint, of the misconduct that you viewed online. The other ways to file a complaint about police misconduct include contacting 311. You'd also go to a local police precinct. It does not have to be the precinct where the encounter took place. So any precinct in the city of New York will allow you to make a complaint about police misconduct against any other precinct in the city of New York. You could also send a letter to our office. That's at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor in Manhattan, New York. You can also visit our office in person at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor in Lower Manhattan. If you would like an outreach presentation, feel free to contact the outreach unit at outreach@ccrb.nyc.gov. Also, feel free to join the CCRB on social media. Follow us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you all once again very much for attending. Thank you, Chair David.
Thank you. Thank you, Jahai. Any questions or comments from board members for Jahai? All right. So hearing none, we are going to go to the public comments section of the meeting. We are going to ask people who want to speak to use the raise the hand feature, and we will go down the list. We want you to please keep your comments to 2 minutes. And Yahira, if we are ready, would you please call the first person who has raised their hand for public comment?
Thank you so much, Chair. Again, I echo everyone's sentiment. It has been a sincere pleasure, and have been so excited to have you as Chair and leading the agency. Before we go into the public session, we want to recognize that we have the Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan District Attorney's offices in attendance, as well as representatives from council members Carlina Rivera, Shakira Krishnan, Althena Stevens, and Assemblymember Salazar. Before we go into that, we'd like to pass it over to newly elected Councilmember Brewer in case she wants to say anything.
Oh, just like everybody else, I am a big fan of Fred Davey, and I obviously have known him for a long time since he was in the Borough President's office, an office that I know a little something about. And after being there for 8 years, watching the CCRB and see the amazing both activities and agendas that you have promoted and dealing with all the press at the same time, I'm a huge fan. Now, as a member of the City Council, I look forward to hearings and having actually more say about your future, both on the budget front, which is incredibly important, and of course on the policy front. And I think that this administration cares about what you care about, but I'm a big believer in oversight and watchdogs. No matter who's mayor, no matter who's in the City Council, you need to have the back and forth. You got two sides of the City Hall, and they need to balance each other, but we certainly need to be in oversight. And I look forward to doing that. And I certainly look forward to figuring out how we can be helpful. So I'm here on Fred Davies' last meeting, but more importantly, as a council member, to be as supportive of CCRB. I was there in '89. I know exactly what happened. I was at all those meetings. I'm the longest person around in terms of city government, I think, and I look forward to working with you. Congratulations to the excellent staff and to the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member. And just let me say it's been a real pleasure to work with you over the decades, and particularly over these last 5 years while on the CCRB. Much appreciative for your wise counsel and support for the agency and its work. And it heartens me that you will be in the council in the coming years. And I think it bodes well for not only CCRB's future and the future of civilian oversight of the NYPD, but as you said, for ongoing accountability in government in New York City and the efficient and effective delivery of government for the people of the city. So thank you for all you do, and personally thank you for being a friend and a colleague over these years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Council Member. Next, we'll be hearing from Chris Dunn, followed by Mike Nah.
Good evening, Fred and John and the rest of the CCRB. Fred, I'm here to not talk about policies tonight, but to talk about you. During your time as the chair of the CCRB, it has been a unique era of CCRB leadership. And I know, because I have been at this for over 20 years now, and I have seen a lot of CCRB chairs. You have, during your time, embodied what is the best in CCRB leadership, and you have shown a deep commitment to truly independent oversight. And you have done that even when City Hall has not been on your side. And there have been times in the last 8 years where City Hall has very much not been on your side. And I particularly know you're speaking out about the repeal of 50A. And that was the right thing to do. It was a courageous thing to do. And history is on your side on that. We now, I fear, are facing a much darker period when it comes to police oversight. But that can be for a discussion for another night. What I want to do for now is to just thank you for the integrity and the dignity that you have brought to the CCRB and the police oversight. And I just want to say that your departure is going to be a loss for all of us and for me, and thank you for everything you have done.
Chris, thank you, and that was very generous and very gracious, and I sincerely appreciate it, and particularly coming from Night Clue, who has always tried to make sure that we and others in this city, that this agency and others does what it's supposed to do on behalf of the people of the city of New York. So I really appreciate your comments. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and members of your team there at Night Clue and the other advocates who have insisted on, that we carry out this mission that we've been given. So thank you for all you do for the city, and I hope to be able to continue to collaborate on police oversight in some way post this tenure. But thank you. Next speaker, Yahira.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we'll be hearing from Mike Na. As we are upgrading them, I also want to acknowledge the presence of Councilmember Julie Wan and Councilmember Mercedes Narisi's staff as well. Mike?
Good evening, chair members and leaders. Thank you for having me here tonight. So I just had kind of concerns and questions. I actually have a current CCRB case being viewed at the moment, which is dating back to April of last year. And I just had concerns regarding, when you had mentioned, police misconduct. What authority do they have when it comes to somebody refusing medical treatment and them, not complying by that request?
So let me just say that I think, Mike, is probably better, since you have an active case with the CCRB, that we not have a public discussion about this now. Let's let your case work its way through the process, and then if you want to come back and talk to us at the end, we can do that.
Got it.
Okay.
And how long does it usually take? I guess.
Let me have a staff member reach out and talk to you. Somebody will get to you now.
All right, thank you.
And then we welcome you back, obviously anytime, but certainly at the conclusion of your case.
Okay.
We'll welcome you back already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
This thing felt like crazy.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Sure.
Just going to give folks a second in case they want to use the raise the hand function. And as of now, it appears that that was the last member from the public that would like to speak.
All right. Thank you. So with that, is there any old business to come before the board? Hearing none. Is there any new business to come before the board? Hearing none, I will ask if we are ready to have a motion that we move into executive session, and that the agenda for the executive session of the board is that we will deliberate on 2 full board cases and receive an update from the executive director and the general counsel. The executive directors, the executive director will discuss the following 3 items: scheduling issues for panels and full board cases, updates on pending personnel actions, and the general counsel will discuss updates on current litigation. That is the motion. Would someone please move it?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So the motion is to adjourn to executive session with the agenda as read. All those in favor of adjourning to executive session with that agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Well, the ayes have it. We are adjourned to executive session. Again, I want to thank the public, public officials, staff, CCRB, fellow board members, and all stakeholders for this opportunity. And I'm sure there is much great work ahead for this agency to do. So thank you all, and we are adjourned to executive session.